morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone joining our webinar today. It's great to have you with us. My name is Lucy Slack, and I'm the Secretary General of an organisation called the Commonwealth Local Government Forum. And we bring together individual cities, local governments, local government associations and ministries on issues around local government, decentralisation and good governance at the local level. And of course, one of the things that we prioritize in all of our work is how we can come together and how we can learn from each other. So I'm really delighted that you've been able to join us for this event, which puts learning from each other very much at the center. Our seminar series is called Cities and Climate Solutions, and it's a series of 3 webinars. Lorenzo will tell you a little bit more about that, hosted by a number of partners, our own organization, CLGF, Columbia Global Centers in Mumbai and in Paris, the Columbia Glomet School and the City Diplomacy Lab. So it's a partnership of organizations bringing together a partnership of cities to learn from each other. We know that SDG 11 is a critical goal for cities and local governments, and we know that air quality is one of the priorities in that city goal. So I'm really happy to hand over to my colleague Lorenzo to tell you a little bit more about what to expect from our speakers today. And I'm really looking forward to an interesting debate and a participatory process through this Zoom platform where we have the chance to hear from our experts, but also contribute to a wide-ranging discussion. Thank you again for joining us. Lorenzo.
Thank you very much, Lucy. It is a pleasure to welcome together with you our participants and our panelists to today's first edition of the second season of the Cities and Climate Solution webinar series. So today we will discuss this very challenging topic of urban air quality. And it is a very challenging one because, of course, air quality, good air quality is an essential requirement for human well-being. Regretfully, the World Health Organization reports that more than 7 million people die each year because of air pollution, primarily within cities. And of course, air pollution is also the main cause of climate change, the impact of which severely limits sustainable urban development from a social, environmental, and of course, economical point of view. But as Lucy mentioned, we don't want to just highlight the challenges. We want also to highlight the solutions. We don't want to discourage you because, in fact, we are going to highlight the capacity of cities to address this problem, both separately and jointly. We will go through, of course, the first step of this addressing the problem, which is the analysis of the challenges and the solutions that are designed locally with our 4 champion cities. And then, of course, we will focus on how we can build together a future which is more sustainable, in which one of the pillars of the sustainability will be exactly the quality of urban air. And allow me now to introduce our 4 panelists from 4 different cities in 4 different countries, starting in alphabetical order of their cities of where they work. I would start with Ms. Revati Shindaye. Ms. Shindaye is an assistant engineer at the environmental department of the Brihan Mumbai Municipal Corporation. The environmental department works in tandem with the Pollution Control Board for monitoring and mitigation measures for air pollution. And with concerned departments, they also coordinate funds received from the central government for drinking water improvement, sanitation facilities, reusage of sewer waters, and solid waste management. From Lagos, we have the pleasure of welcoming Ms. Olabisi Shonibare. Ms. Shonibare currently heads the Noise and Emission Control Department of the Lagos State Environment Protection Agency, LASEPA. Her first degree in chemistry is from the University of Ibadan, Oyo State, and she has a master's in environmental management from the University of Lagos. She also worked on various air pollution control strategies within and outside of the country, including with the World Bank and the US State Department. She's a certified mediator on environmental issues, a member of the Nigeria Environmental Society, the Science Association of Nigeria, and the Institute of Chartered Chemists of Nigeria. From Leeds in the UK, we have Mr. Andrew Ickford. Mr. Ickford works in the Leeds City Council Climate, Energy and Green Spaces Service, which has responsibility for their climate emergency program that includes energy purchase and generation, decarbonization, air quality, tree planting, and energy efficient corporate buildings. He leads across a range of areas, including fleet decarbonization, supporting the delivery of one of the largest zero-emission fleets in the country, as well as working to encourage zero-emission uptake across the city and region. He has responsibility for the Leeds air quality strategy and delivery of the action plan for improvement, and also engagement and work with the Combined Authority on Transport Decarbonization, EV and air quality strategy development. And last but not least, from Stockholm, Dr. Magnus Ergaard. Magnus has a PhD in meteorology, and he has worked with air pollution and climate throughout his scientific career. His present position is with the Environment and Health Administration in Stockholm, where he focuses on urban air pollution. Prior to that, he spent more than 20 years at the SMHI, the Swedish Meteorological and Hydrological Institute, working with regional air pollution. Dr. Ergaard experience is mainly in the field of modeling and covers the cycling of acidifying and eutrophizing species, near surface ozone, and particulate matter. So Olabisi, Andrew, Magnus, and Revati, thank you so much for your participation and welcome to the webinar. Before we dive into the topic at hand, just a quick house rule, as mentioned by Lucy, we will have a conversation with the panelists, followed by a Q&A session. I would like to invite our kind audience to use the Q&A tab that you will find on the bottom of the screen to ask the question. You can do this throughout the whole webinar, and we will address this in the second part of the webinar. Of course, you can indicate if this is a general question or is a question specific to one of our panelists. So now I would like to start with 2 quick rounds of questions. And the first one has the quite ambitious goal of making the invisible visible, in a way, if you allow me. So we would like to focus on air quality based on the best practices that come from the different cities in our panel. And for that, I would like to ask all of our panelists to show a picture that showcases one of their most inspiring actions for air quality. So we can maybe start now with Olabisi, if you like. We can start with you, and can you please explain why you chose this image and what it represents? Excuse me, Olabisi, you are muted.
Okay.
We still cannot hear you, unfortunately.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, thank you for having me. I bring you greetings from Lagos, Nigeria. And on behalf of the General Manager of the Lagos State Environmental Protection Agency, Dr. Babatunde Ajayi, I thank you for considering Lagos as a participant in this subject matter. So we are all familiar with air quality, air pollution as we speak. We all know it's a global concern, and then everyone is speaking to it as we speak. So in Lagos, Nigeria, we have identified various sources of air pollution, which we are trying to address. Vehicular emissions, industrial emissions, and waste from burning of fossil fuel. And we know we have actually decided, broken it into 2 parts. We have particulate matter and gaseous emissions. from various sources of this pollution. So what we try to do is
I think we're having a little issue with the connection.
go into partnership with various bodies and organizations all over. So what we have, both local and international, we have various, have this low-cost air quality. Can you hear me? Hello?
Oh, now we can. Thank you. We just lost
so
a bit, but now we can hear you.
Oh, okay. So we know what the consequences of long-term exposure is to poor air quality. So we have serious health issues, and we have, most of the time, we have the vulnerables who are mostly exposed. So what we have, this is a low-cost air quality monitoring sensors, which we have been able to get together from partners. We have partners all over, both local and international, like I said. This is the ERCO type. This is ERCO low-cost monitoring sensors. What it does for us is to pick the particulate matter, particularly the 2.5, so the 2.5 integrate, so that we can get exactly to know what is happening in the airspace, air quality space. So we have this installed all over Lagos as we speak. We have in hospitals and hospital environment, we have in neighborhood, residential, industrial. What we're trying to do is to gather data, because there's nothing you can do without data. When you have data, you are informed, and policy can be driven in that direction. So as we speak, in the last 2 years, we've had this put up. Now, and this came after the World Bank project. Prior to now, we have 6 air quality monitoring stations that was donated by the World Bank. And we had that in in the 3 geopolitical zones of Lagos. So was after that, what was the result we got from that exercise that got us into partnership with other supports, other sponsors, like this is ERCO from Uganda. This is low cost. It uses solar. It uses solar power because of poor power supply that we have back home in Nigeria. So this runs 24 hours, and we have data from the back end. Also, we are in partnership with Clarity Air Movement, Air Solutions. They are also based in the United States. So they have also given us 6 of these. At the moment, we have 30 of this. We have 6. So we are growing by the day. What we have is, at the end of the day, we'll be able to say, okay, this is what the air quality situation is in every local government. And then the government can drive policy towards dealing with issues. Because we have, when we had the World Bank project on, we had spikes from our industrial areas in Lagos, particularly where we have the iron and steel industries. It was a big scare for us because people were resident in that locality. And we were like, we need to do something about it. With information from this, we can be able to say, okay, this place is not conducive for people to habit. Then we kind of relocate people and try to decide exactly what should remain in such locality where we have very high quality, very high level emissions. And we are also engaging in sectoral meetings. What that means is those companies and those facilities that are liable to generate emissions, we are discussing with them at the moment and having them partner with us. The purpose is just for us to have data. With the data, we can decide on the direction the government wants to go in and around Lagos State. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Olabisi, for pointing out the key essential role of measurement of air quality, which is, as you mentioned, the first step in then establishing a more a multi-sectorial approach that engage not only your departments, but other departments in the broader local government. Thank you so much, Olabisi, for that. And we now travel from many thousand kilometers north, going to Leeds. And as we can see, and it shows a photo of a square in the center of Leeds, very famous square. What's the story behind this photo, Andrew?
Thank you, Lorenzo. Interesting. Just quickly about a lot of what Ola basically says. Totally agree, especially around the data. The more we know, the more we can do. I think that's a really fundamental message. So Leeds, I think this picture illustrates what we're trying to do in Leeds, which is very much link air quality to net zero. There is a tendency sometimes to end up with unintended consequences by focusing on one thing and therefore taking your eye off the other. We've been working on improving air quality in Leeds for a number of years now, and we've been able to exhibit a consistent downward trend in air pollution. I suppose an upward trend in terms of the health of the air. And I think this picture tries to encapsulate everything we're trying to do in Leeds, in that we're trying to create a city, an environment whereby your options for moving around Leeds, for living in Leeds, for engaging with the city are as healthy as possible. That fits into our broader strategy for the city as a whole, which I'll talk a little bit about later. But fundamentally, what we want to do is we're in terms of improving air quality, we're wanting to look at how transport impacts on poor air quality in the city, and fundamentally, we're looking to create an environment which will drive the behaviours that will improve air quality. So rather than just try and have necessarily a pure stick approach, we're trying to create a carrot approach to encourage positive changes, which include encouraging more people to walk, cycle, take public transport and so on. So this picture of City Square is illustrative of the kind of changes we're making in the city. This is a square that up until fairly recently would be fairly typically quite congested with private cars. You'd have delivery lorries running through the square and so on. What we've done is we've removed all private transport from that square now. So the only vehicles that are able to operate on there are public transport vehicles, so buses, essentially, with wide cycle paths, well laid out cycle paths, which connect to cycle infrastructure and walking infrastructure around the rest of the city centre, and by extension further out to the rest of the city. So it speaks fundamentally to what we have is our Connecting Leeds strategy, which has clear targets for increasing all forms of active travel and public transport use. But fundamentally, we also have a very clear target for reduction in car use as well, which I think is vital. So this picture, I think it illustrates what we're trying to do. And interestingly, linked to what Alabasi was saying earlier, we have monitors here. We have monitors in this square, we have monitors in other squares nearby, and we have wider city monitoring. So what we want to do is we want to be able to demonstrate clearly the benefits of these changes and look to replicate those, but also share that information regionally, nationally, so that we can look at those improvements. And fundamentally around transport, a lot of the target has been around NO2 NOx reductions, but we're very clear about PM as well, PM10, PM2.5, and the challenges that are present from that. And I think interestingly, what this picture perhaps doesn't show is the fact that we're increasingly moving our attention away from those transport and external air pollution challenges and looking increasingly at exposure as opposed to pure measurements at curbside, and we've been looking very much at indoor air pollution. So what this picture doesn't show is the pipes that we have that run under the city, which connect our district heat network, which is heating from our energy from waste plant, so that all the waste heat that we get from our burning of our waste that would have gone to landfill is used to generate electricity and also heat. So we can remove things like gas boilers from our public estate buildings, our high-rise properties and so on, so that we can generate low carbon, low cost heat instead of people having things like gas boilers in their homes, because we know gas boilers, gas cooking is a really fundamental challenge for indoor air pollution. And some work we've been doing more broadly show that challenges such as childhood asthma are really fundamentally linked to indoor air pollution. And so this is where we want to go. So in some respects, this is where we're going with transport, but it's the invisible story, as Lorenzo might say, in terms of where we need to go next as well, which is indoor air pollution. Could talk all day about that, but time limits, so I shall let Lorenzo move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I really appreciate your capacity to bring different perspectives, different angles into the conversation, equity, transport, energy, waste management. Of course, air quality, it's an umbrella topic that is strictly connected with so many others. And of course, this connection have to be part of an holistic strategy. Thank you so much for highlighting that. And now we stay in Europe, but we move, I would say, east and possibly a little bit east-north to join Stockholm with Magnus. Magnus, what does this photo represent? I love that each photo is quite different from each other.
Yeah.
Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lorenzo, for inviting Stockholm to this very interesting seminar. While I fully agree of the necessity of performing measurements, I thought I should share with you an example, which I think is quite unique for Stockholm and a few other cities in the very north part of Europe, or north part of the world, I would say. This, if you can't see it, this is an ordinary car tire used in Sweden during winter. As you can see, it has studs or spikes that renders better grip on the snow and ice covered roads we encounter or used to encounter during winter in Sweden. When the roads are not covered with ice or snow, however, studded tires have shown to produce a lot of non-exhaust particles while hammering on the roads. During previous decades, Stockholm's main air pollution problem has been too high PM10 levels and too high NO2 levels. Replacing old vehicles with combustion engines with newer ones or shifting to electric vehicles has resulted in rapidly and strong decreasing NO2 concentrations across Stockholm. Annual mean NO2 concentrations at the most polluted cities of Stockholm has more than halved during the last 10 or 15 years. So it has been a tremendous improvement in NO2 concentrations. When it comes to non-exhaust PM10, that is from the road wear, they are not affected by the electrification and the modernization of the vehicle fleet. All vehicles generate non-exhaust particles, and more so if the vehicles are heavy, and in our case, if the vehicles use studded tires. This we found out through measurements and through modeling. So studded tires are really important. We need to get rid of those. So a ban on studded tires on certain roads in Stockholm was put in place back in 2010. And this has led to a significantly lower share of studded tires, both on those roads where they are actually banned, but also in the city as a whole. So while the share of studded tires is around 50% in outside Stockholm, it is now 10 or 20% within Stockholm, which has led to significantly reduced PM10 emissions from the wear, and that in turn has led to decreasing PM10 concentrations. So now we have seen tremendous improvement in PM10 concentrations as well through measurements and through research that really identifies studded tires as the main source for this PM10 in Stockholm. We have noted, however, that the decrease in PM10 concentration has leveled off slightly over the last couple of years, and we speculate, or we have good reasons to believe, that it is due to the increasing weight of the vehicles in Stockholm. For some reason, people like buying heavier and heavier cars, SUVs and so on, so that you can clearly see the increase of weight of the vehicles in Stockholm, and that is working in the opposite direction as the reduced usage of studs on vehicles in Stockholm. A final word, that not all car owners or motor journalists, for that sake, are happy about this banning of studded tires, and they continue to argue that studded tires are essential for traffic safety and so on. But in reality, Stockholm as a city, we experience less and less winters with snow and ice on the road, so they are not that important any longer. And also there are non-studded winter tires that are good enough for the conditions that we experience in southern Sweden. So you must note that there are laws in Sweden that says that you have to shift, you have to have certain tires during winter because of the traffic safety. Otherwise you will slip and you will cause accidents. So this was an example from Sweden, maybe not so common in other places. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Magnus. I think that's a very interesting best practice, not only for the cities in the part of the world where, of course, the weather conditions aligns to that of Stockholm, but also for the importance of the normative approach to pollution. The fact that public authorities can regulate specific origins of the emission of what represents air pollution. So thank you very much. And now, last but not least, we move to Mumbai with Revati. Please, Revati, you have the floor to present your image. Revati, sorry, we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. This we are trying this for a pilot basis. It's a air purifier. It has for particulate matter of 2.5 and 10 initially, and odor control also. So these are the machines we are going to install for 5 locations at present. And they will be, they are IoT-based devices, which will be continuously giving us a feedback regarding the amount of air that's passing and it's getting clean, the particulate matter which has been accumulated, and whether it needs to be activated or whether the general conditions are okay, then it will be switched off. And whenever the conditions turn poor, they'll get auto started. So minimal use of electricity will be possible. And
Oh, I apologize. I think there is a little communication problem.
But basically, this is a pilot basis going on. And Mumbai at present, we are basically concentrating on mitigation purposes. Especially, we are concentrating on the construction projects which are going on in the city on a larger scale. Infrastructure projects also, and housing projects also. So we have issued a 27-point guidelines for all these people, which are to be strictly adhered by them. Our municipal commissioner and even our chief minister has taken special interest in this, and we have created a dashboard which regularly monitors what are the actions taken on each site. And we pursue the matter so that they follow all those guidelines, such as they having a sensor at their itself, so that they can have a self-monitoring of the air quality there in their site itself. Then they should follow all the guidelines, like covering the debris properly, also covering the construction material regularly, using of smoke towers, sprinklers, so that no dust is spread in the atmosphere again. These are some of the measures we are trying to implement. we have become successful in bringing down the AQI, the quality. With this, even road cleaning on a regular basis is also being tried out, so that the overall impact of all these measures will help us in bringing our AQI down to good or moderate range. This is what we expect with all the things we are doing at present. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Revati, for highlighting the importance of mitigations measures, being reactive, of course, to the many challenges and the multiform dimension of air pollution with this innovations that can help curb the.
At present, we are more of proactive in mitigating and controlling it. Rather than trying out new technology, because at present our concern is to bring the AQI down, and then we are also in lookout for other measures also. So I hope it all works out well for us.
Thank you so much, Revati, and indeed this well connects the first round of questions with the second one, which is about the future, about how can we plan to be even more effective in what we are doing to curb emission, to ensure that urban air quality is of high quality for residents and actors alike. And for that, I would now ask my distinguished panelists to present their vision for the future with a keyword that represents and embodies this specific strategy to do even more than what we are currently seeing. For that, I would go back to Lagos with Olabisi. Olabisi, can you hear us? There is.
Thank you.
Oh, yes,
Thank
please.
You. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
So please, thank you, and for all the other contributions. Lagos at the moment, Eco Clean Air. Eco Clean Air is a project that we are using to drive the change we're talking about. In Lagos State, we have the Ministry of the Environment, which is our parent ministry, come up with am I still on? Hello?
Oh, yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay.
Thank you.
So we have the Lagos Climate Action Plan that we are all working towards. It's a 5-year plan that is meant to be appraised after 5 years. And like I said, we have different agencies under the ministry. LASEPA is one. We have the Parks and Garden that does the tree planting to ensure the greening of the city. So the Eco Clean Air project is driving awareness around air pollution, particularly among the vulnerables. We have so many women in the rural areas who still engage in fossil fuel burning, and we are trying to build sensitization around it to ensure that they change. We are switching. In Nigeria, gas is readily available. So it's an interim energy for us to switch to ahead of the renewable energy. So we encourage full participation, that people should change to gas instead of burning wood and charcoal, particularly for women and girl child who are mostly exposed to cooking for the family. And also we have engagement with other sectors, MOT, that's Ministry of Transport in Lagos State. We monitor vehicular emissions. And then what they do is a yearly project. They are meant to, all motorists in Lagos are meant to take their vehicle for the check. It's annual. And in the course of checking for the roadworthiness, it also identifies the kind of emissions that is coming out from your vehicle. So we use data from this to build information that will drive the change we're talking about. So the low-cost air quality monitoring sensors I explained to you earlier, they are deployed everywhere in Lagos as we speak. And then we are taking inventory and driving the change, the desired change. Also, I talked about Last Park. Last Park plants trees. It's annual. Every July 14 in Lagos, Nigeria, everybody's planting tree. What does that do? It's supposed to be carbon sinks for every area. And we also encourage that beyond July 14, whatever you do, whether there's a celebration, you can plant trees. The purpose of this is to build awareness, build not ordinarily on you or individually. You can just have events and just plant a tree. It's significant for us in Lagos because of the industrialization. Lagos has over 70% of the industries in Nigeria, don't miss out here. And there's a mission from these industries and also from the vehicles, like I said earlier. So Eco Clean Air is the theme, is the project, is the drive that is pushing us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olabisi, for your rich, thought-provoking suggestion. I think it applies to cities worldwide, in fact, and I really enjoy this initiative of engaging public into a joint participatory climate action for air quality. We would like to go back to Leeds for their suggestion for the future. Andrew, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I think the word I've chosen is ambition for Leeds. I've not been massively original in choosing that word, I'll be honest, because it fits in with our city plan, if you like. Our city plan is called the Best City Ambition. And essentially, it's an ambition which determines the sort of strategic and policy goals of the council and the city as a whole going forward. And it's based on 3 key pillars. And those 3 pillars are supposed to underpin everything we do. It may not sound immediately like it's air quality based, but fundamentally it is. And you'll see how air quality weaves through all of these, much the same way as decarbonisation and the climate emergency weaves through these. So we have three pillars within our Best City Ambition, which are health and well-being, inclusive growth, and zero carbon. So these 3 pillars are fundamentally something that every decision the council makes in terms of our planning, our operations, and so on, these 3 pillars have to be considered within that. So any report that goes to our executive board and so on has to consider the impacts on things like air pollution, the impacts on our net zero ambition by 2030. So nothing we do can be approved without consideration to those things. So how air quality fits into that is really interesting, because health and well-being very clearly is linked to air pollution. You can't have a city that's a healthy city where people improve their mental and physical health, where you've got poor levels of air pollution. So we need to make sure that the way we operate our services and the way we encourage everyone who lives and works in the city, those businesses in the city, are considering how they deliver their services, their businesses, producing goods and so on, and both mitigate against air pollution to continue to improve that for the benefit of all our citizens, the young, the old, the vulnerable, to make sure we've got that continuous improvement. And that is done through the other pillar of inclusive growth. We need to make sure that we're shaping the city and the economy so that it is going to work for everyone. We've got to consider the inequalities and those real structural inequalities that often drive where air pollution impacts. Statistically, those that suffer the most impacts from air pollution, and much the same, those that suffer the worst impacts from climate change, are typically those in the more socially deprived areas, those on lower incomes. And so we need to make sure that the growth of the city financially and economically is to the benefit of all. That growth is distributed fairly across the city, creating opportunities for all. And in terms of our net zero and our air quality ambitions. That means green economy, green skills, green jobs. So it's investing in things like apprenticeships, in maintaining electric vehicles, in solar panel installation, that sort of thing. All of these things that can create jobs and wealth, but have the net benefit of improving air quality, reducing emissions, and the link to net zero. So obviously all of that is then underpinned by our zero carbon ambition, which again is about reduction of carbon emissions, so that we're net zero. It doesn't mean we'll have no carbon emissions, obviously, at Leeds. Much as lovely as that sounds, but it's about the net zero aim. And so that's again linked very much about low carbon and affordable transport networks that mean people have equality of opportunity because they can get to places, get to jobs, but in a way that doesn't impact on air pollution. We have fair and sustainable food systems where produce is grown locally. Again, might not directly link to air quality, but it does in terms of reduction in transportation, food and so on. How we can look about reducing the sources of air pollution, both acutely and regionally, and addressing challenges, things like housing quality and affordability. Air pollution, as I say, isn't just about transport. Air pollution is about your home, your office, your workplace, your workplace, places you visit, how safe they are, how they're heated. And we've seen cases in the UK recently where air pollution has been listed as a cause of death for a young girl in London a couple of years ago. We've seen poor housing standards have an impact on the death of a poor young lad in Rochdale, where black mold was a cause of death. And all of these things are linked to the quality of people's homes, their health, and fundamentally those things that are in the air that cause damage, which is air pollution. And I think the last thing I'd say is that if I'm allowed to have a frustration, is that globally we saw a huge move, we saw huge investment, we saw massive collaboration and work on tackling an airborne particulate that killed millions of people when we dealt with a global pandemic of COVID. I would love to see similar action on a global airborne particulate that has worse impacts and has had worse impacts for hundreds of years and will have impacts for decades to come, if not longer, i.e. air pollution. So and I think on that, I think that's why events like today are great in terms of building that national and international cooperation, because we know air pollution is transboundary, it's natural sources transboundary, so we do all need to work together. So thank you very much. I hope you didn't mind a slight deviation there.
Thank you, Andrew, for raising these two essential points. First of all, the fact that through ambition, you do not only limit something, but actually you empower the whole community. And the second reference for the importance of international connection and exchanging of ideas that, of course, we fully believe in, provided that's our core activity. Thank you so much for raising this point. And now to Stockholm. Magnus, what's your keyword?
Yes, thank you. You may know that Stockholm is the home city of Greta Thunberg, and she always says, listen to the science. So I have chosen a fairly long keyword, the WHO air quality guidelines. Sweden is part of the EU and has to follow its rules and regulations regarding, for example, air pollution. There are a number of air quality limits that the city has to comply with according to EU law, and for most species, Stockholm is under or well under these legally binding limits. Still, calculations show that a large proportion of the inhabitants of Stockholm are exposed to harmful air pollution. Estimates indicate that about 1,000 people die in advance due to poor air quality in Sweden, being a relatively clean city. To this end, politicians in Stockholm have decided that we should follow the WHO's updated air quality guidelines by 2030. This is a very progressive decision, and it proves it may prove to be very difficult to follow, actually. But that is what they have decided. The WHO's guidelines are considerably stricter than the current EU limits, but they are expected to lie behind any update of the future EU limits. So it will be, that is the science behind these limits. The dominating source for air pollution in Stockholm is local transport and influx of air pollution from other regions outside Stockholm. So there are obviously a number of legal reasons or practical reasons why it will be difficult to meet the WHO air quality guidelines, but still that is the goal for 2030. The politicians have to this end decided that the traffic in Stockholm should be emissions from fossil fuel should be zero by 2030, relatively soon. And they have also decided that we should start now with a low emission zone in central Stockholm. And that should be implemented at the end of the next year, end of 2024. Stockholm cannot fully decide what is permitted within this low emission zone, because that is specified in the national legislations. But in short, in the low emission zones, we will only permit electric vehicles and gas vehicles of Euro 6 or better. We will start with a small low emission zone, and we expect it to increase while people get to know how this works. And we have learned through experience that active measures in the city, through active measures in the city, we can achieve better air quality, as in the example of studded tires I talked about previously. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Magnus. It's very interesting to see this dialogue with different levels of regulations and guidelines. As you mentioned, you have the local ones, then there is the European one, the guidelines from the World Health Organization, and see how cities are actually breaking those barriers and connecting with those higher level of legislation to get inspiration to integrate ambitious goals and, of course, set the tone of a conversation with other cities, as Stockholm is doing. And last but not least, I would like to leave the floor to Revati for her keyword about the vision for the future. Sorry, Revati, you are muted.
Yeah. Thanks for allowing me. I forgot about mentioning one of our key initiatives. We have decided that by 2029, our public transport will be totally EV buses, which we have started in the process of that. So that will, and also all the government buses or vehicles, whichever we'll be procuring, will be going for the EV versions of those bus vehicles. So I think from our side, from the government side, we are encouraging even the citizens to go for the EV versions of the vehicles they'll be purchasing. And we are thinking of giving some initiatives in those lines for encouragement purpose to the citizens. So for emission purpose, this is one of the initiatives we have taken, and hopefully it will have some good impact on the vehicular emissions which we are facing here right now. And I think whatever guidelines and the mitigation plan which we are implementing right now all throughout Mumbai, which if we are successful, at least 80 to 90% will help in curbing the pollution factors, which are causing this low, poor AQI in our city. Hopefully, we will be able to overcome this and we'll have a clean Mumbai with a breathe easy Mumbai sort of thing we'll have in our city. We are hoping for that by 2025 and till 2029, we'll have a much better clear sky of Mumbai's. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Revati. It's very interesting to see how cities are taking this very seriously, this challenge very seriously, and challenging themselves to provide solution. Of course, that's very, very important, and it requires a lot of political courage to set up those challenging goals. And we can see that this is a common line across the participant cities. Thank you to all the panelists. We now move to the Q&A sessions with our public, and we already have a couple of questions. The first one, which comes from Andrew Wells at the Columbia Global Center, Paris, is about the city's policies towards limiting car use. Are there categories that are not allowed in your cities? Any taxes, car-free zones? So this has been briefly mentioned by some of our panelists, but I would like to reopen the floor to any panelists who would like to directly target this specific topic of limitation of car in the urban perimeter. Anyone who would like to answer? Oh, I can see Magnus. Please, Magnus.
Yeah, thank you. Since 15 years or so, there is a congestion tax in Stockholm, which the city itself does not decide the rules and does not get the money, but there is a congestion tax which you have to pay when entering Stockholm, also when leaving Stockholm. So driving through Stockholm has a certain fee. It is not a lot, but there is. And then there are, I don't have it in the top of my head, but there are various types of zones in Stockholm. You cannot drive with old lorries, for instance, in the city center. That is permitted because they are emitting too much. They have old diesel engines which emit a lot of particulate matters. There have also been, we have a small section of one street which has a kind of low emission zone that was introduced a couple of years ago only, and that was again only on one street, and it was a lot of debate because people thought that would limit transport both for the people living there and both for the people having their shops and so on. But the idea was to only certain cars could drive on that particular street, and the idea was that it should give rings on the water, so to say, to improve the air quality in the surroundings. So there are certain such things in Stockholm, at least. Thank you.
Thank you, Magnus. We have Andrew now, and then Olabisi.
Thank you. I'll be very quick. In the UK, we had a national government framework for clean air zones, and that was determined by government. And Leeds was due to introduce a clean air zone, and that would have limited certain categories of vehicles into the city. We went a long way down the line of preparing to introduce the clean air zone. But prior to the commencement of that clean air zone, we delivered lots of, we call them early measures projects, which were to deliver immediate changes to air, to those polluting vehicles. What actually happened was we delivered significant fleet change in Leeds through things like changing the licensing of taxi and private hire vehicles, so they all shifted to hybrid and plug-in. Lorries and buses moved to Euro 6 or cleaner, so including electric buses. We did a lot of work, such as a council EV trial scheme to encourage light goods vehicles towards electric vehicles as well. And that meant that Leeds was no longer breaching UK or EU air quality limits. And on that basis, the government then withdrew the mandate for us to deliver a clean air zone, on the basis that if we did deliver a clean air zone, we would have been open to judicial challenge in that we would have no legal basis to do that, which is it's a good news story in terms of delivering consistent and embedded air quality improvement. It's a bad news story in that it meant that we weren't able to deliver that clean air zone because there was no longer the legal basis for it within UK law as set out by government. So what we have now is we have a challenge of continuing to improve air quality based on transportation without limiting particular vehicles. So that's informed our strategy in that we aiming to do things like reprioritization of roads away from private car use, such as a city square image. So investing a lot on things like cycle infrastructure and so on, low traffic neighborhood schemes, and fundamentally making things like EVs accessible to all through investment in EV infrastructure, residential hubs for EV charging and so on. So we're trying to drive the behavior now rather than utilizing restrictive policies on what vehicles can and can't enter, albeit obviously things like a clean air zone similar to a low emission zone rather similar to that in Stockholm is always something that is within the arsenal of any city. Obviously we see that in London, and we could potentially look at things like that going forward, though it'd probably be carbon based rather than NOx based.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Olabisi, please.
Hello. Okay, so thank you very much. Years back, we used to have this policy that had to do with odd and even number of vehicles on the road. The purpose of it was to reduce the number of vehicles each day. So we have days that odd numbered vehicles go out and days for even numbers, but that has changed over time. So as we speak now, we have a fleet of buses, mass transit buses by Lagos Metropolitan Area Transport Authority, is Lamata in Lagos. The purpose of that is to reduce personal vehicles on the road. It's mass transit, and it has dedicated lines to make the journey faster so that you don't have to take your vehicles. So currently, they are running an inventory of the emissions into the environment because there's a plan to change them to electric type. So we are currently working on the fleets to know exactly the contributions to vehicular emissions in Lagos. So at the time they're able to switch to the electric vehicle, they can conveniently say this is the amount of carbon footprint that has been reduced in the course of transition. So that is what we have at the moment. The Lamata has 3 major routes in Lagos, in the city of Lagos. So you can just use it as without necessarily going out with your personal vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olabisi. I can see that the questions are flowing in, and I thank our audience for that. There is one question specifically targeting Mumbai. So for Revati, in Mumbai, residents were subject to open trucks plying with debris from SRA developers for months on end, leading to various health issues. What is the rule for this? And is there a number where citizens can upload the photos for action by authorities?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Yeah, we have a My BMC app where the citizens can upload their photos, complaints, and our photos. We have dedicated phone number for that, for registering the complaints, and yeah, this because this is one of the few years of this is the first time Mumbai has faced this severe pollution problem, air pollution problem. Early years it was not that much, but our post-COVID there is a mass scale development projects going on, and construction work is also on a larger scale, which was on hold for 2 years of COVID. So that has been speeded up. All the works are speeding up. So it's a collective effect. Even the weather conditions are poor. There is no airflow, which is a regular feature in Mumbai city because of the seashore nearby. But that is not happening this year. So it's all a collective reason why the conditions are poor this year for our city. So we are handling it on a war footing basis. We are trying our level best to control this. Even the metro projects is one of the reasons what we are so keen on, so that public transport utilization should increase, which in turn will help in reducing our vehicular emissions and which will help in control the air pollution. So it will take a few years for the metro projects to start on the larger scale. We have at present few lines working, but when the whole of the network is working, then it will definitely help in controlling the pollution.
Thank you very much, Revati. We have another question, I guess, for all the panelists from Oladeji Sadiq. Mr. Sadiq asks, what are the city's environmental regulators doing to ensure that the monitoring and analyzing data generated are of high accuracy? Is anyone interested? Oh, I can see Andrew. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I think there's probably two responses to that, and I'll try and keep it quite quick because they could be complex. But essentially, in the UK, we have an obligation that every local authority has to submit an annual status review to government. That annual status review is an annual report which details and lists all the data we capture on air quality monitoring across the city or relevant area in the UK. And that report is then scrutinised and analysed by the Department for Environment, Farming and Rural Affairs, who are the responsible department for air quality in UK, and they will either approve or not approve that report. So for any city or metropolitan area or county or district in the UK, you will be able to find these annual status reports, which have all monitored data recorded in them, and that will be a combination of live data captured from our AURN network monitors, which will capture all manner of information from NOx to PM to ozone and beyond, but also things like diffusion tubes, which will capture things like monthly, annual averages. So all that information is captured, reported, and we have a sort of national governance and legislation that determines that that's accurate. And within that, there's obviously data accuracy, validation processes, and so on. In addition to that, locally, we work out with the academics in the city at Leeds University and Leeds Beckett University in their respective scientific areas on improving our understanding of air quality. So we work with them on additional air quality monitoring, utilising live data capture using things like purple air monitors, clean sense monitors, and so on around the city. And we link that to citizen science projects so that we can further understand, in particular, things like particulate matter in local areas, look at impacts of things like tree planting, urban heat islands, and so on air pollution, and build that together. And we're working with the Nexus Institute in Leeds with Slingshot Technologies on developing a digital twin for Leeds, which will capture all the data that all the different organisations in Leeds have, the academics, the council, government offices, and so on, to create a dashboard which will be available to the public to see all live data, but we'll be able to use a digital twin of that to look at how we can assess impacts of changes to improve air quality. So it's that really interesting, really exciting stuff we'll be doing. But they're probably the two key ways that we make sure our data is accurate and also transparent, which I think is important.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Olabisi.
Okay, thank you very much. So what we have in Lagos, the Department of State, US Embassy in Lagos has the reference grade air quality monitor. And what we do is to co-locate our sensors, the air quality monitoring sensors we have stationed all over Lagos. We co-locate with the one at the US consulate. So what that does for us is a reference grade type. So we're able to match what we have against that. So it helps us with our results, and we're able to say categorically that yes, we're actually giving out the best results from the data we are getting all over because of the co-location. Any sensor we put up is co-located with what we have at the US Consulate Lagos. It's a reference grade type. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olabisi. Magnus.
Yeah, for Stockholm, we are very strict about using reference instruments. I mean, we don't use cheap or simple. We cannot use simple sensors, or we cannot use diffusion samplers or so, because we are monitoring the air quality in Stockholm according to EU law, and then only certain instruments can be used, and that is what we use. And we don't have so many monitoring points, maybe 10 points across Stockholm, and we have specifically selected the most polluted areas and monitoring stations that are relevant for the highways or in very central sites and so on. But we have selected the most polluted sites, and we use these reference instruments. So there is not much argument whether this data is real or not, because we are following all the protocols.
Thank you very much, Magnus. Revati, please.
Mumbai has 25 central air quality monitoring stations, which they are set up as per the CPCB guidelines, that is Central Pollution Control Board of Government of India, where all the norms are followed, and the readings, whatever real-time data is available on CPCB website also, and our municipal website also, where the citizens can access them all the time, anytime. And the calibration and part is looked after by the Pollution Control Board. So they provide us the data. We also have some monitoring stations which they calibrate, or they keep a watch on that. And the whole of the data is available to the general public anytime, anywhere. Those 25 stations are mostly located in the most polluted traffic junctions, where traffic congestion is a norm there, and so that we get a real picture of the worst conditions. And at present, we are planning to have a dashboard where we'll have a sensor network of which can give us more picture of the pollution and hotspots in Mumbai, where we can address the problem at the point source itself, so that it's not spread up and cause more pollution elsewhere also. So we are in the process. We are still to install that. We'll have a sensor-based system and a dashboard where the data will be available regularly. And also we are thinking of linking it to the complaint line, so that the citizens can give us a complaint, and we can collaborate with the data, and then we can address the problem there itself at the source itself.
Thank you very much, Revati. We will have only time, unfortunately, to ask a last question, and I will ask my kind panelists to be extremely concise in their answer. It's an answer coming from Mr. Hervé Lambert. Basically, how do we deal with heating systems emissions? What do cities recommend? Andrew, please.
Yeah, heating and eating is a real challenge for air quality. I think it's something we're looking at very, very much in Leeds. I mentioned briefly before about the challenge of domestic gas use and the impact on things like childhood asthma. We've seen work being carried out across Europe by CLASP, an organisation that has conducted studies in domestic homes on heating and eating, and fundamentally on things like gas cooking, use of gas use, and tracking that against childhood asthma propensity. Fundamentally, their recommendations are that we move towards electric heating and electric sources of cooking, on the basis that it removes that combustion element from the home, and it takes it demonstrably reduces pollutants in the domestic setting. Obviously, that's challenging. A lot of cities will have pre-existing gas infrastructure, and there may be challenges around capacity for transitioning towards electric heating. But that would be something that is recommended by CLASP, and we're seeing that increasingly as part of a strand around decarbonisation as well. Fundamentally, you could look at things like hydrogen, but I suppose the benefit of electricity is that the infrastructure is already there in our cities broadly. One other option we do have, which we utilise in Leeds, I know places like Denmark, for example, use this even more widely, significantly. I think the district heating schemes whereby you utilise waste heat from industry and so on, and use that to heat homes. And again, that can remove things like gas boilers from homes. So that's definitely something that can be looked at, and that's something we're increasingly developing in the UK. Leeds being one of the first to do that. So I'd probably say electric heating or district heating.
Thank you, Andrew. Magnus, if you can, under 1 minute. Sorry for the limitation.
Okay, very short. In Stockholm, heating in local houses is not a problem. We have district heating that is spread out throughout the whole city. Although, that being said, there are occasions when people burn wood for recreations. I mean, it is very cozy to have a fire going on. So there is some issues with that, especially in the suburbs, but also in city center. But apart from that, heating of houses is through district heating, and it generates very little emissions because it has filters and good technologies and so on. So it's not a big problem.
Thank you very much, Magnus, for being so concise. Revati, is your raised hand from the previous question, or you wanted to answer this one?
Yeah, I can take this also, because Mumbai has banned coal burning and wood burning for domestic purpose or even for commercial purposes. We totally depend on gas combustion. Electric one is it's for our transition to electric is quite difficult for us at present, considering the population and this demand and the number of people. So it's a difficult transition. But yes, we are totally in gas combustion. So wood and coal is totally banned in the city.
Thank you very much, Revati. And Olabizi, last but not least, very briefly, please.
Yes, thank you very much. So, Nigeria, Lagos is mostly tropical, so we are not challenged with having to heat our homes during cold season, basically. So we don't get exposed to such pollution from heating of homes because of our tropical nature. However, the kind of indoor emissions we look out for is those domestic indoor pollution from cooking. So that's what we try to deal with. And we've been having conversations around it as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olabizi. And well, I think we have heard so many interesting thoughts we can keep with us. We have gone through the importance of monitoring and data. As Andrew mentioned, the more we know, the more we can do. But also the importance of rethinking local mobility from an equity angle, the equity being one of the elements that connected so many of your contributions. The importance of local regulations and the dialogue between those regulations and the regional, national, regional, and international regulations. The importance of raising awareness and engaging the public in order to make sure that this is a participatory action. The importance of being ambitious in every decision, setting goals, considering the impact of measures that can shape air pollution and indirectly, of course, well-being, equity, and growth. The role of partnerships with universities in data analysis and strategic planning. And finally, the role of partnerships between cities in order to advance knowledge and capacity. Of course, this is a very rich conversation. You will be able to access it on the social media channels of the hosting institutions. Unfortunately, our time today has come to an end, but the debate on urban solution will continue. My colleague Andrew Wells has posted in the chat the link to register for the December 6th next webinar focusing on energy solutions. We will have the participation of Braga from Portugal, Santiago in Chile, and Nairobi in Kenya. Once again, very different geographical context, but a lot of shared commitment to advance climate solutions. I would like to end by thanking our panelists for taking the time to participate and share their practices and vision. Dr. Magnus Ergaard from Stockholm, Ms. Olabisi Shonibare from Lagos, Mr. Andrew Ickford from Leeds, and Ms. Revati Shindaye from Mumbai. And of course, thank to all of you in the audience for your kind participation. Goodbye and take care.
Thank you.